What do you believe in? First of all, I believe in myself. That's what comes to my mind when you ask me this question. Do you believe in God? It depends on how you define belief in God. As for his existence, yes, I believe in God. I believe in the existence of God. On the other hand, no, I don't believe in his word or his promises. Does that make me a disbeliever? No, I don't believe it. The main thing is to know the existence of God, to know that he exists. His textual word is there to insinuate proof of his existence. The Quran, the Torah, the Bible, are textual proofs of the existence of God, and they define religion. Therefore, the texts themselves diverge. That's how we have different opinions about God. I don't question his existence, and you should do the same. I only question the veracity of his text. I think that his text serves as a narrative for future projects, as well as past projects. His text helps us to have an opinion about God, about his way of acting and his way of speaking. It is therefore a religious profiling, a profile that we give to God. To those who tell me that the Quran is true because it contains scientific evidence, I answer, mathematicians have solved equations that were unresolved until now. Does that make them prophets or gods? No. Technologists have invented and written about technology. Does that make them prophets or gods? No. Scientists have resolved conflicts that were unresolved until now. Does that make them prophets or gods? No. Poets and philosophers have been able to charm us, to seduce us with their beautiful words. Does that make them prophets or gods? No, not at all. Some people find that the Quran has a certain charm, not by his speech, but by his unique literary style, and that is enough to convince them that it is the word of God. For me too, the Quran is the word of God, sent by God to the Arabic-speaking world only, or initially, but that is all it takes. It is not a message that was sent to me, nor to my loved ones, nor to other peoples. I am free to believe in what I want. As I told you, I believe in the existence of God. However, I do not believe in his word. His word resonates like a dictatorship in me, a commandment for those who do not know how to differentiate good from evil, those who do not know how to love their fellow man or make peace with their spouses. As I told you, we know intrinsically what is good and what is bad, because we have eaten the fruit of the knowledge of these virtues. This is how, in addition to the laws of God, each nation has its laws, its own codes, its own regulations and charters. It is important to write so as not to forget, and to reason with the universe. That is why I write to the universe and to myself. It is important to modify the writing according to the evolution of our civilizations. What was good and true yesterday can become obsolete today and tomorrow. This is how in the Bible there are only 10 commandments, as if to say that there are only these 10 laws that will not change, and should never change in theory. You see, although I do not necessarily believe in the Word of God, I use his texts and visions a lot to illustrate my ideas, especially when I agree with the text, or when the only explanation we can make of reality comes from these texts, like, for example, the creation of the world. I agree that it was God who produced this creation, and not a natural disaster called the Big Bang. After all, the universe is as intelligent as its creator. Otherwise, we would all be stars from the disastrous Big Bang. Life comes from God, and the explosion from his destruction. How could an explosion be creative? We are talking about a nuclear explosion, or an explosion on an atomic scale. The Big Bang as an explosion is an extension of territory, an extension of domain and dimension. Scientists tell us that the universe and this explosion have not finished expanding, and that one day everything could disintegrate in a big crunch. The Big Crunch is in this sense the opposite of the Big Bang. In a big crunch, everything shrinks and is swallowed up, as if absorbed by the central black hole of the universe. Where everything began, everything will end. No one knows what is behind this black hole, if not the opposite, the infinitely small. This flow is like a heartbeat. One day it swells and explodes, and the next day it contracts and shrinks. God promises us illusions heavenly and hellish. You are free to interpret these illusions as you are free to interpret your realities. I don't believe in it. God didn't promise me anything. And I don't believe in his utopian promises. I simply believe in the destiny he has drawn for me, life. God promises you immortality. to you and your loved ones. Just know that the earth is not big enough to contain an infinite number of people. In addition to being immortal, do you believe that you will be able to reproduce in eternity? Not in this world, not in this present universe. The universe that is the earth has boundaries. The earth has its limits. The earth has its capacity for the number of people it can accommodate. We will never be able to fully exploit the earth. Outside our limits, there is a space hostile to the human environment. Finally, on the existential question of God, we can all agree. God is real. God exists. Our differences come on his promises and his stories. No one is obliged to believe that his adventures are true, that his story is true. This is how Jesus calls it parables. The word of God is parabolic. It is a teaching rather than a true story. Why does God not give us the true story? For that you must question what is true. For me, the only truth is me and my life. My life is my reality, and my reality began with me. All your lives and your realities are in this sense for me, only deflections of my reality. To put it simply, your lives are unreal, improbable, and immeasurable. God is limited to me. God is limited to my perfection, like a video game with only one player. You are only my scenery and occasionally a shared experience. Furthermore, God is limited by my presence alone. God is not big enough, nor powerful enough to be constantly with the 8 billion human beings living on earth. God is only with the messy. God exists only in the messy. God defines the messy. Those who hear this message apart from God are like interpretive ears for this same God. God is unique, and the messy is his uniqueness. By uniqueness, I mean his only reality and not his interpretation. You are therefore the interpretation of his failure, the interpretation of his isolation, the interpretation of his solitude, and the interpretation of his boredom. God creates you as reflections precisely because he is alone. You are a pastime for the boredom that he strives to kill.